At 0342 hours on March 23, 1945, 18 men started inflating rubber tanks along the west bank of the Rhine. The real armor was 20 miles south. Enemy reconnaissance flights took off at dawn, 90 minutes away. March 1945. The Rhine River was the last natural barrier protecting Germany's industrial heartland. The Allied High Command planned to force a crossing at Wesel, then drive east into the Ruhr. But German intelligence watched every mile of the West Bank. Artillery, observation posts, aerial reconnaissance. Every buildup got noticed. Every crossing got shelled. The 30th and 79th Infantry Divisions would make the actual assault. But 2 weeks before Schauer, they had a problem. The Germans knew something was coming. They'd reinforced Wesel with 2 panzer divisions and dug in artillery on the east bank. Intelligence estimated German observers could see 8 miles of riverbank. Aerial reconnaissance flew twice daily, dawn and dusk. 9th Army needed the Germans looking somewhere else. Not Wesel, somewhere 20 miles north near Viersen. They needed the illusion of a full armored buildup, 2 divisions, tanks, artillery, supply dumps, the whole machine of an impending assault. And they needed it ready in 16 hours. They called the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, 1,100 men, no weapons. Their job, make the Germans think 30,000 soldiers and 600 tanks were massing at Viersen while the real crossing happened at Wesel. The 23rd wasn't regular army. Half were artists, recruited from art schools, advertising firms, design studios. The other half were sound engineers, radio operators, and combat engineers who specialized in one thing: deception. They'd been doing this since Normandy. Fake buildups, phantom divisions, rubber tanks that looked real from 400 yards or through a reconnaissance camera at 3,000 feet. But they'd never worked on this tight a timeline. 16 hours from arrival to full deception. The real crossing was set for March 23rd at 0200 hours. The 23rd had to be in position, fully deployed, transmitting fake radio traffic, and looking like an armored division by March 22nd at 1800 hours, 6 p.m. That gave German aerial reconnaissance exactly 12 hours to photograph the buildup before the real assault kicked off 20 miles south. The convoy rolled into the staging area at 0200 hours on March 22nd, 16 hours on the clock. Lieutenant Colonel Clifford Simonson checked the recon photos. The ground was flat farmland, no tree cover, good for enemy observation, bad for hiding mistakes. Every inflatable tank had to be positioned where a real tank would sit. Every dummy artillery piece had to face the right direction. Every tire track had to look like heavy armor had rolled through. The sonic deception trucks had to park exactly 200 yards from the river, close enough for sound to carry to German listening posts, far enough that muzzle flash from speakers wouldn't give them away. The radio operators had to start transmitting by 0600. 6 hours. Division-level traffic. Battalion frequencies. Company check-ins, all fake. All time to match the actual radio signature of an armored division preparing to move. At 0215, the first trucks unloaded. Each inflatable came in a canvas bag, weighed about 80 pounds deflated. The crews worked in teams of 4. 2 men held the fittings. 1 worked the air compressor. 1 directed placement. The compressors were loud, gasoline engines hammering in the dark. They couldn't run them once daylight hit. The sound would give away the whole operation. Every inflatable had to be up in position before 0530, before first light, before German observation posts on the east bank could see movement. 3 hours to inflate in position what had to look like an entire armored division. The first Sherman took shape in 7 minutes. The rubber skin pulled tight. Treads, turret, cannon barrel, all inflatable, all sagging until the air pressure hit the right point. Then it locked into form. From 50 feet away in the dark, it looked like a tank. The crew rocked it to settle the base, then tied it down. Wind could flip them. A strong gust could send a 30-ton illusion tumbling across the field like a beach ball. By 0245, 4 tanks were up. The crews moved to the next position. Spacing had to match real doctrine, 40 yards between vehicles, staggered formation, not parade ground perfect. Real tank crews parked sloppy. Too neat an aerial reconnaissance would flag it. At 0320, the wind picked up, 15 miles per hour gusting 20. The inflatables rocked. One Sherman tipped. The crew scrambled to catch it, stake the tie-downs deeper. 5 minutes lost. The compressors kept hammering. By 0400, 18 tanks were up. The target was 48, 21 trucks, 12 artillery pieces, a full mechanized combat command. At 0415, one compressor died. The engine seized, no warning, just locked up. The crew switched to a backup, lost another 8 minutes rigging the hoses. 30 tanks up by 0445. First light at 0530, 45 minutes left. 18 inflatables to go. The radio operators had started transmitting at 0600 as planned. Call signs for the 79th Division's armored units. Fake traffic, movement orders, supply requests, casualty reports from a skirmish that never happened. The transmissions had to sound routine, nothing that screamed, "We're setting a trap." Just the normal chatter of a division getting ready to move. But German direction-finding stations could triangulate radio sources. If the transmissions came from one point, they'd know it was fake. The radio trucks had to keep moving. Every 30 minutes, new position, new transmission point, creating the electronic signature of a division spread across 6 square miles. At 0520, the last inflatable locked into position. 48 tanks, 21 trucks, 12 artillery pieces. The crews scattered, dragging compressors into tree lines, covering air hoses with dirt. First light at 0529. The German observation post across the Rhine reported activity at 0545. Armored vehicles, estimate 2 battalions. Positions marked, artillery coordinates called in. The 23rd waited, no movement. The inflatables sat silent in the growing light. At 0620, the sound truck started, not loud, not yet, just enough. The recorded playback, tank engines idling, gears grinding, the metal-on-metal clank of treads moving, voices, officers shouting orders, crews responding, all recorded from actual armored units 6 weeks earlier, now playing back through speakers pointed east across the Rhine. German listening posts picked it up. Confirmed the observation post report. Armored buildup. Multiple battalions preparing to move. At 0710, the first German reconnaissance flight went over. A Fieseler Storch spotter plane, low and slow, circling at 2,000 feet. The pilot photographed everything. The tanks, the trucks, the artillery, the tracks in the mud. The 23rd stayed hidden. No movement, nothing to break the illusion. The Storch banked south and headed back to German lines. By 0900, German intelligence had the photographs. They showed what they needed to show. A mechanized combat command, full strength, positioned for a crossing at Viersen. German command shifted 2 artillery battalions north, moved them from Wessel to cover the Viersen approach. Exactly what 9th Army wanted. The 23rd held the illusion for 18 hours. At 1,400, the sonic trucks played a full mechanized movement, engines revving, orders shouting, the sound of an entire armored division staging for assault. At 1,730, the second reconnaissance flight confirmed it. The buildup was still there, still growing. At 1900, 7 p.m., the 23rd started pulling out, deflating the inflatables, loading trucks, erasing the deception. They had 5 hours to disappear before the real crossing at Wessel. The real assault kicked off at 0200 hours on March 23rd. The 30th and 79th Infantry Divisions hit the Rhine at Wessel. They expected heavy resistance. They got moderate fire. The German artillery that should have been covering Wessel was 20 miles north, aimed at Viersen, waiting for tanks that didn't exist. The crossing succeeded. Casualties were 30% lower than projected. Engineers got pontoon bridges up by 0800. Armor rolled across by 1,000. By 1,400, the bridgehead was 3 miles deep. At Viersen, German artillery fired on empty fields for 6 hours before they realized the deception. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops ran 21 deception operations between Normandy and the Rhine. Operation Viersen was the 18th. It bought the real assault 5 hours of lighter resistance. That's what 18 inflatable tanks and a 16-hour setup window could do. The unit was classified for 51 years, declassified in 1996. By then, most of the men were in their 70s. They'd gone back to art studios, radio stations, engineering firms. They didn't talk about it much. Soldiers who never fired a shot but changed the math on a river crossing. After-action reports from the Rhine emphasized one thing: timing. The deception had to be in place before German reconnaissance, had to hold long enough to shift artillery, had to disappear before the real assault revealed the trick. 18 hours, not 17, not 19, 18. Most people remember the Ghost Army for the creativity, artists making fake divisions. Fewer remember the logistics, the air compressor schedules, the radio transmission intervals, the placement doctrine that made rubber tanks look real through a camera lens at 3,000 feet. War history focuses on firepower, tonnage, casualties. The Ghost Army proves something else. Sometimes battles get decided by tire pressure, radio frequencies, and how fast you can inflate a fake Sherman before sunrise. The Germans fell for it because the timing looked right. A division doesn't appear instantly. It builds over hours. Vehicles arrive. Radio traffic increases. Engines warm up. The sonic trucks played those sounds in sequence because that's how real operations develop. The illusion worked because the timeline matched what German intelligence expected to see. If you think military history is just about who had more tanks, you're missing half the story. If you value the operations that don't make headlines but shift outcomes, subscribe to Chrono's Combat. These stories disappear if nobody preserves them. At 0342 hours on March 23rd, 18 men started inflating rubber tanks. By 0200 the next day, 30,000 real soldiers crossed the Rhine 20 miles south. 16 hours of deception. 5 hours of lighter resistance. That's what timing could buy.